Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind, episode 85.
Kids and your family are in your life for not just your strengths, but your weaknesses. So don't be hard on yourself. Your weaknesses are something everyone's learning from, and they love you with or without them.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Shiloah Baker. Shiloah is a daughter of God who is married to the man that she's madly in love with. She has a PhD in motherhood and an MA in the homeschooling art. She's a professional mom to 10 great homeschooled kids, as well as an energy therapist with Lifeology, holistic health coach. She's the owner of the Homemaking Cottage and Company, a lover of religion, life, classic books, children, red lipstick, jewelry, and beautiful things. Welcome, Shiloah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm so excited to be here.
It's going to be such a fun conversation. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your families, and kind of your hobbies, passions, and of course, we want to hear about your website that you've got.
Absolutely. So motherhood is like my main thing. And so you've already talked about how I have 10 children. We have 8 girls and 2 boys, and they're kind of sandwiched in between in really odd places. But my family, they're my passion. I plan most of our days and trips and, things in my life around family. So let's see. We live here in Stuttgart, Germany. We're here with my husband with the military. But I've had so many different experiences around the world. I was born in Panama. My dad was military. He was a helicopter pilot. And when he retired, I met my husband. And I said, I'm never marrying anyone in the military. I'm tired of traveling. I just want to settle down here in Texas, and I'm done. And I met my husband. We got married. He was not a military man until we got married. And he joined. And so ever since then, we've been traveling the world. This is my 4th time here in Germany. And I'm determined to make this a much better experience than I have in the past. We have traveled in the past, and I did so with my parents and my family, but this time I have a whole new energy about just really experiencing this and taking full advantage of being here, especially because we are homeschooling. So that's helped a lot.
So do you want to go ahead and tell us what your personal educational experience was? You've talked about military, but what was that like?
Yeah. So I went to lots of different schools growing up, but by the time we got here to Germany the first time, it was in the late 80s, my mom pulled me out and started homeschooling. And that was so unheard of. Nobody does that. And of course, it's illegal to homeschool in Germany. But the great thing is, if you are military, you can homeschool legally. And I love it because we don't have the umbrella of how in the States, depending on what state you live in, you have to, keep track of tests or, get them tested every other year or attendance records and all of that. You're pretty much whatever you want to do, anything goes. Homeschool.
So you're totally unhooked. That's pretty cool.
Totally. It's really awesome. And so my mom was the same way. So we homeschooled about 4 years. My parents went through a nasty divorce, and so I had to go back into the public school system. And I will tell you right now, it was those 4 years, 4.5 years of homeschool that really changed my life. They changed my perspective. My mom was very sick, and she was in bed a lot. And so she kind of, and I'm going to put this in quotation marks because it's not true, neglected us as far as homeschool stuff is concerned. And so I was free to do whatever I wanted. I would study the curriculum that she gave me, and then I just read whatever I wanted. I would sit in the library and I would study everything that interested me. And I gained all of these opinions and thoughts, and I was really pursuing my passion. And of course, my mom felt guilty, because she couldn't, do what she thought was right, and the conveyor belt and all of that. And I really attribute some of what I do today to that time period. And I'm so grateful for it.
That's an interesting thought that, when you do have the freedom, a lot of people think that when you give somebody freedom, they won't do what's best for them. But in this
Exactly.
case, you're proving it wrong, that when you're given freedom, you actually buckle down. And do you feel like you worked harder through that?
Yeah, I do. But I didn't do it according to, well, you have to take this test and you have to learn this within this, time period. No, I was free to explore, and I didn't have someone beating me, over the head. No, you can't read that book because it's this grade level. Oh, stay out of that section because you need to be in this section. I had none of that. And so I was reading medical books, and I was reading, motherhood, midwifery books. I was into whatever was interesting for me at the time.
That is really great. Did you stick with like some of the basics of mathematics and things like that too, or did you just focus on stuff
That's
that you
when she came? When she came around and said, "Okay, we're gonna buckle down and we're gonna do school," then she's like, "All right, math and science and all this kind of stuff." So I got that in. It was not my favorite, but I'm pretty darn good at it and I love it. But anyway, that's not my passion, and it's never been my passion. But it's been a passion enough for me to be really good at balancing a checkbook. I've been really good at doing mental math because that was something my mom was good at, and it was something she worked with me. And I'm telling you, that's something not a lot of people have a skill in today.
That is true.
So I'm taking that and I'm doing the same thing with my kids. Mental math is so important. Some of that other stuff that I learned in school and out of school, I don't remember it all because I don't use it as much as I learned some of those important everyday skills.
Exactly.
So from there, I went to, I finished all of that, the basic education, and I went to college. And I remember sitting there in college, I'm like, this is not me. I am not cut out for this. This is boring. Why does everybody do this? How is this going to make me progress? I hate this. And I flunked out of so many classes, or I just dropped them before I did flunk. I finished so many, but I was like, you know what? Obviously, I'm just not cut out for this. I don't know what's wrong with me that I can't do this. And my parents are more of the conveyor belt. Even my sisters, they're more of the conveyor belts kind of people. They're like, no, we do this, we do that, and then we graduate, and then we go on to our little jobs, and we do this and that, and we fit this perfect mold. Well, I am the one kid who did not fit the perfect mold. So I've taken a lot of that, and I use that same kind of philosophy with my family. Pursue your passions. So you also asked about what my hobbies and passions are. First passion is my family, like I talked about. I really do love being a mom. And at the same time, I can't stand it. Sometimes the kids make huge messes. And sometimes my house is atrocious. And we work so hard all day long to get it cleaned up. And I turned around and there's huge messes. And a kid is naked and running out the door, or whatever. And so I've had to learn, how do I manage this and stay sane and keep loving what I do? And so that in my passion, I've done a lot of study. I've done a lot of studying other women who've had large families and how do they do it and not look gray and not look old and tattered and worn. So
That's
my
great.
hobbies, my hobbies are what are helping me not look gray, tattered, and worn. So I love to go to the gym. I need to get out and I need to be me. I love to read. I have a passion for reading. And, my hobbies really kind of are my passion, so they're kind of mixed together. I read all the time. I do what Cicero tells us to do. Read at every weight. Read at every moment, every opportunity. You always have a book with you. And so I've been reading more and more books every year. And we have a library. We have a family library we've been working on. We have about 6,000 books now. And I love it. It's so much fun.
That's great. So we'll kind of go back and tell us how you feel like your paradigm and that educational philosophy kind of changed over time and with your experiences. How have you feel like that you've been able to focus your energies in a different direction?
Okay, so I started off putting my kids in the public school. Yeah, I really knew from the beginning that I was supposed to be a homeschool mom, but I would look around, and this is terrible, but I'm going to confess this right now. I looked at the homeschool moms. I'm like, they're so frumpy. They wear tennis shoes with dresses. I'm not going to be that. And that was my perception of the homeschool moms. They wear frumpy. And I was like, no. And my kids aren't going to look like homeschoolers. It's just, no. And so it was so vain. I know. I look back at this. I'm like, oh my goodness, really? But I cared more about what other people thought. So for the first 4 years of my oldest daughter's education, she was in school. Then the next two kids fell in line, and everyone would come up to me and ask me, are you a homeschooling mom? Because they wanted some advice or something. And then I would get offended. What, do I look raggedy? This is terrible. I know.
You do. Like when people ask you questions when you first start out, you are very, don't you feel like, at least I was very defensive. Like, why are they asking me that?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so we had some bad experiences that I knew God had been telling me all this time, you need to take him home. You need to take him home. And finally I said, all right, I'm going to take him home. Well, I sought out my first mentor. I first called up a girlfriend. I was like, who do you know that homeschools? Who do you know? I need to talk to somebody and I need to talk to them right now. So she's like, I only know one lady and she lives around the corner. And I was like, okay, I'm going there today. I'm going to go seek her out. So I go to her and she says, well, I just don't feel like I'm the best mentor for you because I just do things so different. I'm like, yep, you're perfect.
And I'll take you.
Yes, exactly. I said, keep going. She's like, all right, well, I believe that, the public school system and even some homeschool systems, they put you on a conveyor belt and you have to do this, this, and this. And, it's just, it doesn't really go with the child's passion or their mission. And then they spit you out at the end and nobody really knows what they're going to do with their life. And I'm like, yes, it's me. Okay, keep going.
And you spend years floundering going, what am I supposed to be doing? Kind of in a daze when it's all over.
Exactly. And then she said, well, we don't do any curriculum. I'm like, good. I don't like that either. It's intimidating. I said, well, what do you use? She said, we go straight to the classics. I'm like, okay, well, I'm sold. So she sent me away with some works, some books that she had recommended, and I took off from there. So over the years, it just progressed. And what we use now for our methodology in homeschool is called a Thomas Jefferson education. And so it was started by Oliver and Rachel DeMille, and they have these, there are 3 separate ways that people learn. You have phases, basically. So the kids, roughly ages 0 to 8, are in the core phase. Now, he says, this is plus or minus 80 years. So some people never leave core phase. And it's a selfish phase. It is. So it's a selfish age. When you think about the people who are having those nervous breakdowns at the age of 40 and they're like, and they go out and they get an earring and, whatever, or, leave their families.
They're still in the core phase.
They're still in core phase. Exactly. If the child, isn't that funny? So if the child is put through this wonderful core phase and they really get to learn and be free to roam, to play, to learn right and wrong, true and false, they kind of just naturally evolve into the love of learning phase, which is roughly the ages of 8 to 12, plus or minus 80 years, of course. And so during this phase, your child loves to learn. And this is the phase that a lot of people, they put their kids in school and they start to hate to learn. It becomes this boring process, this homework, this teacher gave me an F, or, well, so-and-so is more smart than I am. And it becomes more of a competition. It becomes something not so wonderful. And this is the phase that just makes you or breaks shit as far as education is concerned. And so the love of learning phase, if we fuel their passions and fuel their interests and help them to open their horizons to so many things out there, then they are just going to naturally evolve into the scholar phase, which they are studying hardcore, really great, amazing works by the original authors about 8 hours a day, just because they love it.
Well, it sounds like that's where you were at when your mother was homeschooling you, was in that scholar phase. Do you feel like that?
I do. I truly do. Because I didn't have anyone to kind of mentor me on top of it, I felt guilty and I was like, there's something wrong with me.
That's funny.
But I look back on that time and I realize, wow. And all of those things I studied, I totally use them today. They're totally a part of my everyday life, my mission. Even when I teach others, I totally still use it. I needed that foundation.
So, and there are like little tips and tricks that a parent can recognize when their child has moved from one phase to the other. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a great book by Oliver DeMille called A Thomas Jefferson Education that's a good foundation. And then he has a couple others that lead on to that. But yeah, there are some really easy ways to kind of tell. And it's a natural thing. And some kids are slower or faster than others. And the same goes with the reading. I don't push reading. I'm like, Toilet training and reading are the same thing in my book. They're just as painful, I feel like, for both of us. And so I let my kid go, we give them their panties, or their undies if it's a boy, and they learn how to potty train on their own when they're ready. And then before I know it, I'm like, wow, you've been wearing those undies for 3 days. It's time to change them. You have a baby. Yay. And then they're all happy. Yes, Mom, I'm potty trained.
And it's not a headache for you.
Yeah, exactly. I have 8 kids that did it the same way. They potty, and of course it was different ages, 2 or 3 or 18 months. It just depended. But they did it themselves. I gave them the tools. I created the environment. I offered help, but I got out of their way. And the same thing goes with reading. I don't push it. When they're ready, they're going to come running after me with the book and they'll get it. But I create a print-rich environment and lots of books being read out loud or audiobooks, or I read to them where they can go through the books. And that way, before you know it, they're like, Mom, I need to know how to read.
Well, and I think, it is a natural progression. Like sometimes kids are moving through those phases and parents don't even recognize it. But once you start recognizing it, it allows you to feel less guilty, like you said,
exactly.
to have that kind of release where you're able to see that this child is just more interested in this sort of subject and that he'll progress, that he's not going to forever stay stuck in a diaper. And not being able to read. So.
Exactly. And I have several children with learning disabilities, one specifically with autism. And I remember she did not potty train until she was 6. I thought, I'm a failure as a mother. I don't know what I'm doing here. But she finally did potty train. But I remember telling her one time, I said, all right, Madison, you really need to potty train. Are you going to do it before you become a mother? No, I'm not. And I said, well, you're never going to be a mother then. You can't ever be a mother if you never potty train.
You can't change somebody else's diaper if you can't do your own.
No. Exactly.
That's funny.
Exactly. But she finally got it. She was just slower. We just, especially when we're talking about, neurological difficulties, they are emotionally behind as well as, that physical sense. And, she was my slowest reader. None of my kids learned this late. She's 12, but she's reading now. So, it does happen. It's just emotionally, she's like 9 years old.
Yeah. And it's really, like you said, the fear of what other people think of you.
Exactly.
So that's the thing that stops you. So, talking about that, what would you say the biggest obstacle was that you faced, and then what have you learned from that? We've talked about that, not feeling like you're doing something just right or in the perfect order.
Yeah. I have to say the biggest obstacle was worrying about what other people thought of me. And then, I went through the whole hair raising, maybe they're going to call the authorities on me because I'm terrible at what I do. But I had to learn to, doggone it, these kids came to me. And they came to me with, because of my personality, because of my strengths, and because of my weaknesses. And I know I've got to figure this out. And so the biggest obstacle was that. And over the year, and now I'm in a place where I'm like, I don't care what people think of me like that. We're just going to do what we need to do, and we're just going to keep marching, And instead of the backlash that I thought over the years that I would create, instead people are like, thank you for being different and making me not feel so bad about what's going on in my home, or that my kids aren't perfect and that we are not here where I thought we should be or where people tell us we need to be.
Yeah. I think we all feel that way, unless somebody dares to branch out and be different like you and express different opinions and ideas. It creates a feeling like you don't dare, act like you're different than that norm.
It's so huge. It's so huge. I really think that I was born like a different color or something than my family, or, I have a different way that I look or something. Something sets me apart because my family fits into the round holes and I'm the square peg who just doesn't do things the same way. And I know my dad and my mom were like, we don't know what to do with this girl. But, here I am doing my mission, which is totally different. They would have never said, hey, Shiloah is going to be, a coach. She's going to be a homeschooler. She's going to have 10 kids, But I knew what I wanted. I knew it was going to be something different. And I needed that passion to feel it. I needed to have the courage to do it because it's not easy to speak out and to be different and to share this because it puts you in that place where you're vulnerable to share these kinds of things with people. but I feel so strongly about it. I have to do it.
Exactly. And so I'm going to ask you another question too. I mean, at the beginning, you talked about how you love being a mom, but you hate it at the same time. How do you combat that feeling of like, this is horrible?
Yeah. Well, two things. Okay. So if it's one of those days where as a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys got to go away. I can't deal with this anymore. What I do is I take myself and I go away and I, hire a babysitter. My husband and I go on a date. When I was in the States, I'd go sit at Barnes and Noble until it closed and kicked me out. Or I go shopping, or I do something that I love to do, call a girlfriend up and just go hang out and just vent and just fill my well, fill the well that I'm filling to, giving to the other kids. And I get to that point where I'm dry. I'll listen to new audio, find some encouragement, things like that. Now, if it's one of those days that it's the kids that are really discouraged and, everyone's just like, I can't do anymore. This is horrible. I'm failing, whatever. I say, okay, it's time to party. It's time to have some fun. We get out the music. We have a dance party. We'll go watch a movie. We'll have, do puzzles. We'll put on an audio. We'll go to a park. It's just time to take a break. When it gets to be too hard, I'm like, why are we pushing? There's something that's got to give. It's time to laugh. It's time to have some fun. It's time to just release.
I love how you make that distinction. I think in homeschooling, there are two different days. There are days that I'm not handling it well, and then there's days that they're not handling it well. Exactly. And so it is really important to make that distinction because you have to act differently in each different case. So wonderful.
Exactly.
I really love that. Before we go on, let us take a minute and hear about our sponsors. Ready to homeschool your children, but you have no idea where to start or how to do it? Already homeschooling, but you're running into problems, or maybe you just want to improve results. Are you an expert homeschooling parent looking for every possible angle for your children? The Homeschooler's Handbook, written by an award-winning teacher with over 40 years' experience at every level of education, has the tools and answers you're looking for. Use the link on the luminousmind.net podcast show notes page and buy your own copy of the Homeschooler's Handbook today. Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Shiloah Baker. So what type of success have you seen? And I think maybe that's when you get to the point when you see some of these successes, that's when you stop caring what people think. So what are some of those successes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, some of the successes are, I have 2 children now who have graduated. Now, you think about how I pulled my kids out of the school system, and then we had to detox. We had to detox from the school. We had to get to know each other. We had to get to, be around each other. And all of a sudden, I realized I have to get to know you guys really well, and I have to be patient. Before, I was one of those moms, I can't wait till school, it's back in, get the kids out of the house. And all of a sudden, they're with me 24/7. What are we going to do? We can do 2 things. We can make this miserable, or we can make this wonderful. And so I chose to really get to know my kids and to really establish a relationship with them, to find their hearts, to keep their hearts, to help them find their passions. So my oldest daughter is getting ready to go on a mission for our church. She loves to write. She's so excited to be a mother. We went through this whole series of, she decided, I'm going to be a nurse. So she studied all these nurses in history, midwife nurses, just all kinds of nurses, and realized by the time she got to the end and wrote this huge paper, she's like, I don't want to be a nurse. I don't want to do that. And
well, sometimes they have to explore things for a while.
They do.
Really find out what they want to do.
It's better. Exactly. And it's safer to do it at home when you're kind of just, I'm going to look in this life and, I'm going to go down this path. I'm going to interview people, instead of wasting all of your years and your money in school, and whatever, and get to the end and say, really, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. A lot of wasted time.
Exactly. And then my second daughter, she was one of those kids who was just totally into cooking. She loved to cook. I taught her how to cook, and then we couldn't get her out of the kitchen. And so I was trying to inspire her to read, and she wasn't as interested. She would rather read Betty Crocker and, Paula Deen all day long than she would rather read Homer. And we're finally able to turn that around. But, she still loves to cook. And now she's graduated and she's getting ready to go to a culinary art school in France.
Oh,
so we're
awesome.
Really excited. Yeah.
That is fun.
So, and, aside from that, my kids, we have wonderful relationship. We're really close. They're service-minded. They're virtuous. They're honest. They're very open. They love to learn. They love reading. They have a passion for learning and research. They're very open-minded to bringing new things into their lives and to listening to others. And, they're just a little bit different than the average kid that, goes to public school. And that was my goal. I wanted them to stand out from the crowd, to be leaders, to be helpful, to be, involved. And this is what I've seen with this kind of education. And I'm so, so happy with that.
Yeah. Well, I like how you talked about detoxing too. And I think, let me run something by you and then get your opinion. But I think that many of us we were raised basically by the school. I mean, we were there for 6 hours a day. We saw our parents only in the morning and at night. And some of those discussions that we had with our families were a little more heated because of the frustration of the schedule. For my personal opinion, that it has to come back to a lack of being able to parent correctly. That's one thing I guess was never really modeled for me because I wasn't with my family 24 hours. Do you believe that maybe some of the struggles that we have with detoxing is learning how to parent again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was a lot of disconnect when I think about the 50s, the perfect mom, then we had Donna Reed, we had all of this stuff. And then, the schools, the teeny boppers, all of this started coming out and people started moving away from the home. Even a lot of the books, the culture and a lot of the youth fiction right now is they're in school. It's all about school. They don't have any life outside of the school and their friends.
Yeah, I was going to say, and friends are way more important than that relationship that they have with their mother, dad, siblings, any of that, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was my big goal, to turn that around, because I knew that it affected me growing up, that if I was more worried about my friends, then my mom and I fought more. And so I recognized that. And one of the books, and I hope that I get the title of this right, it was Keeping Our Children's Hearts. This was recommended to me. It was my first book to read as a homeschool mom, and it's one I recommend to everyone to read. It's by Terry and Steve Maxwell, and they have the website titus2.com. That book, it changed my whole perspective. It was talking about how if we don't have their hearts, God doesn't have their hearts, and they're not going to listen to us, and they're not going to respect us. One of my biggest fears as a parent was to parent teenagers, because if you look at the culture of teenagers, it's quite scary. And I wanted to be their parent, and I wanted to be a mentor, and I wanted to be a friend. And I was wondering, can I actually do this?
You've heard that you can't, right? That you have to
right, and you see it. Yep, exactly. And you know what? I can stand here today and say I have 4 teenagers, well, youth, and you can totally be their friend, be their mentor, be their parent, be the authority. And at the same time, they come to you for everything because they trust you. They know that they're valued. They value your opinion. And that's what I wanted so much, because I love my family. I want to be able to communicate with them and be their mentor long past the time that they leave for home. If they want to ever come back and say, hey, Mom, I need some advice on parenting, or, whatever, I want to be able to be that person. And so far, so good.
So speaking of that, what are some personal habits that you have acquired to help make you successful in that pursuit?
Oh, good question. Well, first of all, we actually stopped the practice of spending the night. That was a huge deal. I found that my kids, even me as a teenager, I come home and I'm like, Mom is not as cool as I thought she was. That other mom was way cooler, or whatever. I stayed up too late. And so we stopped all of that cultural things that we in society do all the time. If the kids are all running to the movies, we don't let the kids run to the movies with all their friends. We do create experiences that are done in a healthy environment. But one thing I taught my children is friends are never number one. It's God, family, education, friends off to the side. And we will encourage you to have good, healthy friendships if you've got those other things in alignment.
Yeah. Well, and as long as their friends are positive too, and you don't.
Absolutely.
And that's really important to help children learn, who are going to help them become more successful in their lives, and those people they're going to hold them back.
Absolutely. That's so important. The quality of friends, yes, is very important. And yeah, so those are some of the things. We also have regular meetings, like mentor meetings with them, where we just sit down, we talk. We talk about different aspects of their lives, what's going on. We encourage them in education. We give them some inspiration on their reading. We talk to them about how they're feeling about religious stuff, their spirituality. We just have a series of questions that we utilize when we talk to them. And they know we have an open door policy, and now I'm speaking military. We have an open door policy.
That's funny.
Yeah, that they can come to us at any time. And I guess my biggest problem in this is that they all want to talk to me. I don't have enough time.
Well, especially with 10 too. It's like,
yes.
So you're the owner of Homemaker, Cottage and Company. Do you want to tell us what the inspiration behind your coaching and your services are?
Absolutely. 17 years ago when I had my son, I actually began this website, and the whole premise behind it was I felt like homemaking was a calling that was not honored and not respected enough. And so I began this website. I mean, I looked all over. There's nothing about homemaking other than Martha Stewart's stuff, which was like, that's more about cooking. So we need something that's going to really teach us women, and encourage us in all these areas and aspects of the home.
Well, and once again, a lack of what we all had was parenting and homemaking skills. We think that if we take a semester of home ec,
exactly,
somehow that prepares us.
Yeah, we get to learn to sew a pocket and yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so I realized how lacking my own skills were. And so I thought, well, if I can write what I'm learning, and if people would be willing to share, I can help create a huge website online that will help women in the home. And so the tagline is reclaiming home and family. And so that really is the ultimate goal. I believe so strongly that we can turn this cultural problem of, anti-family, anti-husband, anti-man, homemaker, go out and get a job. There's so much confusion in these roles that were once just a given. These were God-given roles. They're still God-given roles, but they're just not honored as much as they were back, for hundreds of years and thousands of years. And so that was my original goal behind it. And, 17 years, I've changed the website name a couple times. It's gotten new clothes several times, but in the end, it's still the same goal.
That's great. And so what services do you offer? It says you're a writer, a blogger. What do you offer families?
Awesome. So we offer daily articles. I actually have a writing team now where we have, there's like 6 or 7 women who write. And then, of course, I write too. And we have topics. I'll do like this month. We were talking, well, maybe it was last month. We were talking about supporting men and boys and our sons and teaching them how to be wonderful young men. It was, so we have different topics that we write about. And there's something new that comes out literally every day, sometimes twice a day, that in any aspect of homemaking, which is huge, it really is huge. You've got the kitchen, you've got family, you've got yourself, you're trying to balance it. You've got marriage, you've got, religion. And I do talk about homeschool quite a bit on there too. So I offer articles and inspiration in all of those topics within the website. It comes out daily. I also have an e-zine on there that has more resources and also keeps you up to date with what's going on the website. And eventually I'd like to have a book. I'm looking at the next year or so to have my book out. So that's up and coming.
That is great. Now you said you have e-zine. What is that?
Well, it's just the email list that,
okay.
I guess maybe they're changing it and that's an old fashioned word. But
so you can sign up basically to be on this email list and it sends out the updates, correct?
Right. The updates and also just more resources and tips.
That is awesome. That sounds wonderful. So, and I love the fact that, you kind of talked about that. That's been the theme of our call, I think, is that, getting back to love. We are so grateful as women. We have so many opportunities, but we don't want to discount the calling that we can have and the impact that we can make in our own homes, being healthy homemakers and being able to run a smooth household. And so, is that one of your goals? You kind of talked about that.
You hit the nail on the head. That's it. That's what I want.
That is great. So how have you seen families benefit from being connected to your services?
Oh, wow. I've received so many emails over the years of women who've been able to learn and grow, and they'll email me for ideas, and then we can come out with a new series of articles or whatever. But it's really neat. I didn't know all of the impact until, this many years later. People are friending me on Facebook and said, I've been following you since before I had kids, and it's helped me raise my kids. And I'm like, what? This is so crazy. Yes. So it's been a huge blessing. I really love that.
Well, and we kind of talked about before we started recording for the podcast, but how, being different has helped. I mean, the paradigm shift, of how when we have a different philosophy and a different paradigm about life, it helps those other people really embrace that. Is that kind of what you've seen too?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've had a lot of women decide to homeschool. I've had a lot more women become more focused on religion. I mean, just so many various stories. Some women have quit their jobs and felt that confidence in staying at home. And, they were never taught how to cook or clean, or they didn't even know how to find, like I used to have an article on my website, like how to wash the dishes or how to iron. I don't know how many people said, I found your website with how to iron a shirt.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. Basic skills that you're helping. That's great. So what are some long-term goals that you see for yourself and your family or your business?
Oh, goodness. So for the business, I would really like to get out there a little bit more. I kind of stayed in my little shell and behind the screen, just, writing. And over this last year or so, I've been reaching out and doing more speaking. And because I find that I can reach more people. Some people do really well with reading a lot, and some people want to connect with the voice. They want to see me and hear me. And then I can reach out to people in that aspect. So I would love to do more speaking engagements. I definitely want to get a book out there because, it's not comfortable to curl up with the screen and read the blog, the site.
Exactly.
So.
And what about yourself and your family?
For myself, I'm always working on myself. But, let's see. Oh, gosh, I have to think about that one for just a second. I'll answer the family one next. The family, to get all of my kids graduated and on their way, becoming great people, getting involved, being service-minded I hope to have children who want to have more children, more and more people. And, they're just not having children. We live here in Germany where they're paying people to have children. They pay them per child for like up to 20 years per child to have children because there's more old people than young people.
We really don't understand what an impact it is to have a society just of old people. I mean, you need those younger workers to help, at least take care of the older people, if not.
Yes.
Anyway,
and honor them and listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's just something, and it's something else that we don't do as a society. But yeah, the Italians, they say there will be no more Italians in less than 10 years if they don't have children. It's so bad. And in the U.S., we have more children, but at the same time, they have more abortions. 43 million babies a year are being killed by abortions. And that's staggering.
That is unbelievable.
So, and so I want to teach my family. I'm hoping to create within our family culture a love of family, a love of children, a love of the gospel, a love of service, and with that, center their life's mission. So that's my goals with my family. For myself, I would really like to stay connected with everyone, continue to travel. I love to travel. It's really fun.
We kind of talked about that again before we start recording, how travel has affected your education. How do you feel like that's helped? That's an extra side bonus question I'm asking you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, travel has really affected my education. When I was a young girl and we were here in Germany, my mom took me to see the Gutenberg printing press, and I will never forget it. I will never forget the importance of the printed Bible and how we take for granted a printed book or a printed Bible when people did not have access to those things. And so to remember that there was a life that was different, where people, they didn't have access to the scriptures. They had to go to church and listen to someone read it to them in order to appreciate it. So, that, and we would see the castles, and even nowadays, taking my kids, we just went and saw Dachau, the concentration camp, and actually got to hear stories and understand what went on there. And it brings the Holocaust to a whole more personal level where we can really honor what they went through, but also be more aware. Where is our country headed today? What can we do as statesmen, stateswomen, to change the course of our country, to become involved in politics? So traveling has been amazing for education for all of us.
That is great. I have extra little plug in there. I'm a big believer in travel myself. So awesome. So what advice or encouragement would you give to somebody who's just wanting to start out?
So, honestly, my big advice to everyone just starting out is be kind to yourself. It doesn't have to be what everyone else is doing. Don't compare yourself to someone, like me, who's been doing it for a decade or longer. Just do what's right for you and your family. Do a detox. If your kids are in school, get to know each other, get a rhythm, a system down, learn your nights, learn your days, get connected in that way, and don't compare. If I could give you one big tip, it's don't compare. And also, kids and your family are in your life for not just your strengths, but your weaknesses. So don't be hard on yourself. Your weaknesses are something everyone's learning from, and they love you with or without them.
You got to kind of take baby steps sometimes when you're trying to do something different. That's great. Great Absolutely. Advice. You kind of mentioned one book, and can you actually give me that title again? But do you have a favorite book or resource that you want to share? Yours will be coming out soon, but...
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's in the future. So, Keeping Your Children's Hearts. It was by Steve and Terry Maxwell. And I hope it was either Keeping Your Children's Hearts or Keeping Our Children's Hearts, one of the two. And then, of course, the Thomas Jefferson Education by Oliver DeMille is also another one that I highly recommend. So, those are the two main books for getting started resources.
Great. Okay, I'm writing those down right now.
Awesome.
So, great. All right, if you could leave a legacy, what will it be?
Well, I would hope that people would remember that family is number one, that you put God first, and you can get your priorities all in a row. I hope that my family will continue sharing these messages, whenever I pass on or whatever, and that I will be remembered for being passionate about homemaking, passionate about homeschool, those kinds of things.
That is great. And you're doing so well on leaving that legacy with all your information. So before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice or maybe a favorite quote you'd like to share? And then please give us your contact information on how we can get in touch with you.
Okay. So some final parting words. You can do it. You can totally do this. Your kids are given to you for a reason, and you have everything you need within your sphere of influence, and anything that you don't have is just a prayer away. You will find that person, that resource, that book. It's just around the corner. So you can totally do this.
Yeah. Don't be scared. Baby steps, maybe.
Exactly. Baby steps. Okay. And then my contact information, feel free to friend me on Facebook. I like to share all kinds of stuff there. I do have a group on my Facebook. Just look up the Homemaking Cottage. You can find me there. And my email address is Liber, L-I-B as in boy, E-R-M-O-M, the number 10 for how many kids I have, at gmail.com.
Great. Well, it's been a fun conversation. What a fun lady you are. I'm excited to know when you're going to be speaking. So I hope you'll put that information on your blog, right?
Yes.
Great.
Absolutely.
Because it's super fun to talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca. This was really fun.
Yeah,
thank you.
It was fun. I'm glad that a listener tipped us off and connected us. So great.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Shiloah Baker, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and consider joining our program by going to the scheduling tab to become a fire starter today. Help support the podcast by making all your Amazon purchases through the free Amazon widget on our website. Also, sign up to receive 2 free audiobooks from Audible at theluminousmind.net. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+. Get our audio content on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider telling your friends about us. Leave us a review. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.